So that's kind of the old definition of practice, you know. You are having some trouble in relationship, please chant the mantra morning and evening every day. Having some health problem, please be chanting the mantra morning and evening every day. Yeah. Some financial difficulty, no problem. Chant the mantra morning and evening every day. Or you are having some dry rot in the basement of your house, no problem. Chant the mantra morning and evening every day. Dry rot will go away. So this is the old definition of spiritual practice, that everybody does the same routine every day, or it could be something else. It could be yoga, it could be prayer, it could be whatever, but everybody does the same thing, and if you do it well enough, later you will become liberated, enlightened, perfected, whatever. Then you can start to live your life, you see. The people who I interviewed for the Translucent Revolution, and there were a lot of them. I did 170 in-depth interviews, and I surveyed 13,000 people like you who would fit the description of being translucent. I didn't look for people to interview who had some kind of a shtick, you know? I didn't look for people to interview who had some teaching to offer or some practice they want. I only interviewed people who had direct realization of this infinite spaciousness and who could speak from there. But maybe they had a shtick as well, but I didn't talk about the shtick. I just talked about the presence. The people I interviewed who what they had in common was this realization. None of them would say, I am enlightened. In fact, if I even mentioned that phrase, they would laugh out loud. At the same time, none of them would say, I am trying to become enlightened. So what had happened to these people was not that they had achieved enlightenment, although many of them believed in it before, or that they were on a path. What had happened was they had cancelled their subscription to the concept of arriving at a goal. You see? And this brings me to another point about what's happening collectively. It's not simply a matter that we're awakening. The very nature of the embodiment of that awakening has dramatically shifted. And in order to understand that, we need to recognize the difference between masculine and feminine embodiment of awakening. So far, what we know, what we've seen demonstrated in the world, in multiple cultures, is almost entirely, we think we know, oh, that's spirituality, that's awakening. No, what we see is the masculine expression of awakening. See? Think about it. All the big religions, all founded by men, right? Not only that, by men who then chose as their principal followers more men. In most organizations, spiritual and religious organizations, for years, for millennia I should say, there's a tradition handed down. Until recently, only men could give out the teachings. That's true of India, of yogic traditions, sadhus. It's true, of course, in Christianity. Only recently have we seen women coming forward as ministers in some traditions, but it was not true for a long time. Same in Judaism. Recently we've seen women becoming rabbis, but it's a recent development, and so on. Understand? So, connecting with the divine, connecting with God, connecting with your true center has been seen to be the prerogative of men. There are other aspects of human existence which have been taken over by men, like business. Business. Politics, yeah. So what happens to any arena of human activity when you give it to the masculine to babysit? That's what?
It's a disaster.
It becomes competitive, yes? What do competitive, aggressive, testosterone driven, generally it becomes goal oriented. What do men love to watch on the television on a Saturday afternoon? Football. And what's football all about?
Crashing through.
He was a woman, I just say, what's football all about? getting loose. It's like, I don't really get it, but here's what it's about. So what's football all about? It's about a bunch of guys with a ball, right? And what you've got to do is get the ball, and either through brute force, like, or through speed, it's like, zoom, you've got to get the ball past all these opponents and score a touchdown. You've got to score a goal. And then temporarily you have this ecstatic feeling. You get carried by your teammates and you're free. And this lasts for maybe a couple of minutes and then everyone gets down and does it again. It's also, incidentally, very similar to the masculine's approach to sex. As well. Now the feminine in all of us is quite different. By and large, of course there are exceptions, but by and large, most feminine people don't particularly enjoy watching football on the television. What do very feminine people like to watch on TV?
Ice skating.
Yeah, most feminine people, thank you. Most feminine people like to watch
Dancing with the Stars.
Most feminine people, at least the feminine people I know, love to watch stories about feelings. It's like, is he going to tell her that he loves her? No, he's walking away, he's too proud. Oh. But wait, she's turning towards it. And then at the end, and they kiss, it's, oh! And it doesn't really matter to the feminine if it has a happy ending. I've watched my wife, who's very feminine, I've watched her, sometimes she watches these really dark movies, where like, people are dying, and they're like, oh, it's like, and I'm sitting there like, oh, God, this is terrible, And then, all this stuff, and she's, crying, and then she's like, oh, oh, and at the end, and she's, oh, that was so great. She cried the whole time. Because by and large, the feminine in all of us thrives not on goal setting. The feminine in all of us, in men and women, thrives on the freedom to feel fully. When the feminine in all of us has the permission to feel anything fully, they start to look like this. She's sitting there like, So a feminine person doesn't really matter. It could be joy, it could be grief, it could be rage, but if she is allowed to fully enter into it, she's going to be returned to love. You see? So when the feminine is allowed in her own way to have awakening, it's not about a goal. In fact, the word enlightenment is a hyper-masculine term. Trying to get to this goal in the future where nothing happens anymore. Completely masculine term. The feminine in all of us, if she's allowed to completely embrace and feel what's in this moment, she will feel herself fully as love in this moment. Do you understand? So, like if you go and listen to Byron Katie, for example, who actually probably has a balance of masculine and feminine approach. She never talks about reaching a goal in the future. She talks about embracing more and more of this moment. Eckhart Tolle, although he's a man, has elements of masculine and feminine approach. The power of now. You see, it's not about anything in the future. You practice for now.